I knew that I couldn't have been the only person out there who had life hit them and wanted to figure out a way to fix that, and have exhausted all other means of trying. And hi guys, Jasmine Atten here, Mystic at the Crossroads. Hope y'all are doing well. As you can tell by the title of this video, this is part 2 to my how I changed my life with candle magic, the 5 things that I did when I was just over it. And I first of all, I wanted to get this video out to you guys a lot sooner. If you are new here and this is your first time coming across my channel or my video, I did a video about a week and a half ago just talking about how I changed my life through candle magic, and I went really in depth. So I would definitely suggest you watching that first video if you haven't seen it, because I got very up close and personal with you guys, but really talked about when you're at a crossroads. I was in a place where I was feeling very stuck, very lost. I was 29. I was dealing with just anxiety and depression and a stressful job, and I was at my wit's end, and I did candle work for an entire year. It took to create some really significant changes. And I was actually really shocked, surprised, and overwhelmed at the vast number of really kind and sweet comments. And a lot of you guys asked for part 2 because there were a lot of things that I kind of skipped over. It was an unplanned, unscripted video, and in my midst of trying to just sort of stick to the point and give you guys some pointers on what I did that helped, I missed a lot of key points, a lot of key factors, and some of the details that I left out were, looking back at that video, were actually really important key things that helped me make the decisions that I did to quit my job and just start over when I just didn't know what else to do. So we're going to catch up on part 2. I promise it will not be as long as part 1. But yeah, I wanted to get this to you guys sooner because everybody was asking for it. Unfortunately, I got sick like literally the day or 2 after we last hung out, and today's the first day that I'm kind of feeling better. I had energy. I promised you guys, so I said I'm gonna do this video. All right, so we're gonna just jump right into it. We're gonna start with a question that somebody left in the comments asking, where did I move when I quit my job, and how did I know that that was the right place to go? So first and foremost, I moved to Delray Beach, Florida. How did I know? I did not know. I did not know it was the right place to go. I didn't even know I was moving to Florida till about 45 minutes before I quit my job. I had never been to Delray. I had never even heard of Delray. I didn't know anything about South Florida other than, you know, Disney World and hurricanes. I had only been to Florida one other time the year prior, which was for my father's memorial, and that was like a 30-hour trip to Boynton Beach. And I mean, like, literally got there Friday afternoon, went to the memorial Saturday, was back on a plane 8 o'clock Sunday. Like, it was not, I knew nothing, there was no sightseeing, didn't go anywhere, you know, airport, hotel, memorial, hotel, airport. Like, I had never been to Florida, so I did not know. But if you guys remember from my first video, I talked about how sometimes things are happening in your life right now, and even if they seem less than ideal, they may be preparing you for, or they could be beneficial to you in the future. You just don't know yet. This was definitely, hands down, one of those. And I, without a question of a doubt, know it was a direct result of my candle magic, but we're gonna get to that. So yeah, I went to Florida and I didn't even have anywhere to stay. I drove there knowing ahead of time that I didn't have a place to live, like not an apartment, when I say I knew nothing. I went to a city I had never been to, didn't research a state I never researched, and pretty much knew that when I got there, I was gonna be homeless temporarily, but I also was so done with where I was in LA. I mean, hell, it couldn't get any worse. I mean, it probably could have, but at that point, I was just willing to take my chances, quite honestly. So, how did that all play out? And one other thing that I didn't mention to you guys is how I started my business. My business started with no money. And I know I made a lot of references in my last video about how I had quit my job and like cashed out my retirement and stuff like that. It was not that simple. Let me tell you, it was not that simple. So by the time I decided to leave my job, I was basically broke. So all the good money I was making when I started there in 2005 was not the case when I left in 2015. So how did we get there? What did I learn? And what can I offer you if you were in the place of trying to make a decision? I realized by going through a lot of your comments, there are so many of you that are in a crossroads in your life and you are in a place where you're ready for change. You might know what that is. You may not know what that is. You just know that you're ready for change. And you know that going to work and still being broke, or not even having work to go to, or just wherever it is, what you're doing right now is just not it. It's not it anymore. And I did see a few comments of people saying that they were in a place where they're trying to make a decision. And someone left a really sweet comment saying after watching my video, it helped her make her decision that she was going to go ahead and make the changes that she had been thinking. And that's great, especially if you have time to kind of plan things out. I planned nothing at all. I quit my job and I moved to Florida. I didn't even get my job a 2-week notice, but we're going to get there. So how did we get to that point? We're going to back up a little. We're going to backtrack just a tad bit. The month prior to me quitting my job was my birthday, March. And every year, I always took my yearly vacation off from work. I took my week off from work during the week of my birthday. So I had already had the time, had been put in for months. This particular year was the first year ever that I had no plans. I didn't make any plans. I didn't have any plans. Turning 29, my solar return and my natal chart predicted it. This is another reason why I tell you guys about getting your birth chart done. I'm going to talk to you about that too. That's one of the things that helped me. But it was such a transitional period. Like, my whole everything shifted. I was so deep into burning candles and sitting at my altar, and I was in such a, I was so fucking tired and stressed and just over where I was over everything. I told you guys this last time. I was over the job. I was over where I lived. I was sick of LA. I was sick of traffic. I was just tired. And again, on paper, my salary looked really good, but by that point, the cost of living in LA had skyrocketed. You know, it was 2014, 2015. We had a recession back in 2009, and that caused inflation, and that caused a lot of things to shift and change, and rent went up. So the money that I was making that was great a few years prior just wasn't the same because everything had just doubled in price. So on top of all the stress, on top of being at a job for too long, on top of just wanting a change and not knowing what that was and feeling utterly lost and confused, I was like making money and I was still broke. It was so frustrating, where I used to be able to pay my rent with like one check and still have some money left over, to where I had to pay my rent out of both checks. And you guys get it, right? So my birthday, I had no plans, and I decided to call my friend and just see if I could go hang out in Atlanta, because I just wanted to get out of the city. I just wanted to be someplace else. And my friend was always like, you know, as long as I have a spot, you're more than welcome to come crash. I got an extra bedroom, sort of thing. And it just so happened that my friend was going to Florida, was going to Miami for a wedding. And the wedding, the invite was allowed for a +1. So originally, I was just going to go to Atlanta and just hang out and just like sleep and just get away from the city. And my friend was like, well, look, how about we do this? It's going to cost the same amount, you know, give or take. If you fly here, you fly there. Why don't you come be my +1? Let's go to this wedding. It'll be fun. It'll get you out, different environment, Florida, Miami, the beach. You know, I'd never been to Miami. We'll go to the wedding, and then, you know, we'll turn up for your birthday afterwards. And I was like, you know what? Why not, right? Because I literally had nothing else to do. So we go to Florida, we go to the wedding, had fun time, you know, and I'm in Miami for the first time in my life, and it was beautiful, or at least the part of it. I mean, Florida's beautiful, right? It was beautiful, but it felt kind of familiar. There was parts of Florida that reminded me of LA. And I was just in awe of the palm trees, and you know, it was warm, it was tropical. I love the ocean. And so I always knew, even though I had never planned on leaving LA, I always knew that if I ever decided to leave California, or even just Los Angeles in general, I had to be near water. I needed to be near a beach because of, well, I'm like a quadruple Pisces, and the ocean is home for me. I can't imagine living somewhere where I can't get to some kind of water. So while I was there, the idea of moving there did not cross my mind. I just enjoyed myself. I was there for a couple days, and moon magic. We're going to get into this. It was the full moon. I will never forget this. When I talk to you guys about burning candles, sometimes the most effective spells that you will ever do will never involve a candle. Now, mind you, I had already burned candles for 12 months. So, yeah, there was probably some reserve in the background pushing my manifestation through, but nobody can tell me that what I'm about to tell you was not directly correlated to the full moon. And I never lit a candle because I was out of town. I'll never forget this night. I remember it like it was yesterday. I was standing in the parking lot of Casablanca in Aventura, and I had just had dinner with my friend. We're in the valet, we're waiting for the car, and I look up and I'm like, oh, it's like, I knew it was the full moon, but again, I was not together at that point in my life. And I'm like, oh, it's the full moon, right? And it was beautiful. And I remember standing in the parking lot and just staring at the full moon in awe, mesmerized, as if I had never seen it before, as if I didn't just spend the last 12 full moons doing spiritual work, as if I haven't looked up at the moon for my entire life, at least 20 of my 29 years, right? And I looked at the moon and I whispered, because I didn't want anyone to hear what I was saying, nor did I want them to think I was talking to myself, but I said, Mother Moon, thank you. I really appreciate being here, and I appreciate everything you've done for me, and I appreciate the opportunity to have been able to come and spend my birthday in Florida. It's beautiful here. I don't know what it is, the energy. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing with myself, but I think I like it here. And if this could potentially, or possibly, whatever word I chose, right? If moving to Florida might be what I'm supposed to do, please open up an opportunity for me to make that happen. And that was, give or take 1 or 2 words, that was like my exact thing that I said to the moon. And so didn't think too much of it, you know. Flew back home the next day. It was a Sunday. I was off. I didn't have to go back to work till Tuesday, so it was a Sunday. And I got home Sunday, and I couldn't stop thinking about the beach, the ocean, the heat, the palm trees. I can't tell you what it was. And I just feel like I just knew I wanted to be someplace else, and that was the only other place I had been that was new and different. And so I just was like, well, right? I get home and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna put my resume out, like on Indeed and Craigslist. This is back when Craigslist was around, and I just decided to post my resume. And I started looking up jobs in Florida, and I started looking up jobs in Atlanta too, because, well, at least I knew somebody who lived there. No plan. Knew nothing about Atlanta either. Was just like, I gotta get out of here. So started posting my resume, started sending it to places, and it was honestly, I didn't think I would leave. I was thinking about it like, I'm gonna get the hell out of here, but deep down inside I was scared to death. I just was like, hell, why not, right? We'll just see. So fast forward, you know, I got a couple of phone calls for interviews from people, and they were like, you're in California, you know, like, can you come in? And I'm like, well, yeah, see, that's gonna be a little hard. Can we maybe interview over the phone? Like, I'm don't even have the money to fly back across the country. And of course, jobs are kind of like, okay, you're in California, you applied for a job in Atlanta, you applied for a job in Florida, why are you moving again? And, you know, we usually like to interview in person. Anyway, it was a lot of that. And I was lucky people interviewed me. I'm like, hey, listen, I can't afford to fly. Can we do a phone interview? Because if you don't think I'm a good candidate, I don't really want to waste my money. So those were all no-goes. I got a phone call the day that I came back from work. It was a Tuesday. And I get a phone call from this very pleasant professional voice on the other end of the phone. And I almost didn't even answer it. Didn't recognize the area code because I didn't know. And truthfully, I didn't think anybody at that point. I didn't think nobody was going to call me to ask. I just didn't think I didn't think moving to Florida was ever an option. It was kind of like, well, we'll just see. I talked to this woman, and she says to me, she's like, you know, I'm looking at your resume, and she asked me why I wanted to move, and whatever I gave her, I didn't tell her, you know, I was depressed and all that. It was just like, my dad passed, and I need to move, and whatever the hell I told her at the time. Again, thinking it would end up like the rest of the phone calls, you know, if you can't come in, well, sorry, too bad, so sad. And we talked for maybe 5 minutes at the most, and she says, you know, I have never, ever done this before. I have never considered anyone for a job, sight unseen, but between your resume and talking to you, you really sound like what would be a good fit for this company. Like, you really have all of the qualifications that I'm actually looking for to fill this position. And she says, but I have to ask you one question, like, if I offer you this job, are you going to be able to get here? Like, what is your plan? Or, you know, because we're looking to hire, how soon could you come? And I said to her, I said, what, I'd like to give my job a 2-week notice, of course, right? Because professional. You never tell a new job you're going to up and quit your current job. That would just be bad. So I was like, I would like to give my job a 2-week notice, and that will allow me enough time to pack my apartment up and just kind of, you know, finish up, tie up loose ends and come there. And she says, I'll tell you what, you're making a big trip across country. So if you really are serious about taking this position and you are not going to call me at the last minute and say that you changed your mind or something happened, I'll give you 3 weeks. And if you can be here in 3 weeks, the job is yours. And I was like, I'll take it. I can be there in 3 weeks. I did not know what I just said or what I just did, but again, it was kind of like, well, you know, I could always call her back at the end of the day. She said, don't call at the last minute. So I was on my lunch break. I thought about it, and I went back to work. I went to work, and I walked in my boss's office, one of the doctors. Mind you, this was my first day back at work after being gone on vacation for a week. I walked in his office at 1 p.m, and I said I quit. My last day is Friday. And on the inside, I was shaking, but on the outside, I just was like, this is my chance. And he said, what? He like kind of joked. He was in the middle of eating lunch. He was like, oh, you know, what are you talking about? And I was like, no, I'm serious. I quit. And he like closed the door, was like, sit down. He literally pulls out his prescription pad, and he's like, what's wrong? Like, are you okay? What do you need? Do you need a prescription? Like, and I was like, no, I need to just go, and I'm moving to Florida. And he was just like, are you serious? And I'm like, yeah. And my last day is Friday. I did not give my job a 2-week notice. They were not happy. 10 years of employment, and those were the longest 4 days of my life. Yeah. You see a real different side of people. That was not intentional, but I knew that they would be okay, honestly. And I was it was my mental health. It was it was about me. It had nothing to do with the job, and I've never quit a job and not giving them a notice, but I was like, fuck this place, honestly. So I quit, and working at that job, this was the thing. I had no money. I knew I was going to get my paycheck on Friday, and that would have been the last paycheck, and I figured I was going to take my last paycheck and go to Florida. I had no place to live, never been, didn't know. I had no money to relocate. I just thought I'll just sell whatever I can and I'll figure it out. I also had spent 10 years there and I had a profit sharing. I knew that it was not going to be as simple as you just quit your job and you just call up the profit share, the bank, and they give you a check. It does not work that way. So I know in my last video I had made reference about how I cashed out my profit sharing. It was not that easy. I had, usually you have the option of rolling it over to like an IRA or 401k or something like that. You know, if you cash it out, you're penalized by the IRS, but I already owed the IRS, so I didn't care, just tax it on to the bottom of the damn bill. And my, the office manager was just like, okay, well, what are you going to do? You can leave it in this account. And my thought was like, okay, I didn't know anything about profit share, but I had called the bank and asked, and I'm thinking, well, maybe if I can just take a little bit off the top, like I don't want to touch, I didn't know what to do. It was like, well, maybe I can just like pinch a little bit, like maybe I'll take like 1,500 or 1,000 or something to get me by, because I had a job, I just had no place to live. So, and then I would just live off of the money from the new job. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Long story short, my job was like, well, this is going to take weeks. Like, the bank isn't just going to issue you a check. Like, it's probably going to be weeks, and we'll mail it to you. She literally said it could take up to 45 days. So when she said that, I'm like, okay. But I had already didn't have any money anyway, and I had already planned to go with no money. So it just seemed like, well, whatever. However, talk about spiritual work and magic and the universe, God, goddess. There was that 12 months of candle burning was on my side. So fast forward, I quit the job. I am terrified because now I've quit my job. I don't have more than maybe $1,400 to go across country. My rent was already paid, but I was like almost halfway through the month. So if I had moved, and if I didn't move, if I had not moved and something happened and that job fell through, I was now unemployed, and I barely had enough to cover the next. I didn't know what I was doing, but I was like, I'm just going to go with it. So a couple days go by and I throw away stuff, get rid of stuff. I'm just getting the hell out of here. And my job calls me, and my boss, ex-boss at this point, said verbatim, she said, I don't know. No, she didn't. She said, you must be doing something right in life, because I just got a call from the bank and they just sent the paperwork over that I'm forwarding to you. Actually, no, I had to go in person. She was like, I need to come in person and sign it. She was like, I've never seen this before, but once we get your signature, I sign it. I'm going to have the doctors sign it, because they were the trustees of the account, releasing me to do whatever I want to do with the funds. The bank was going to process it, and I most likely was going to be able to get my check before I left. And she was like, I'm not 100% sure, but I wasn't even expecting for them to call for like 2 more weeks, and they called today. So I hightailed my ass over there, signed them papers, sitting on pins and needles, and now I'm starting to feel like, okay, well, things are working out. Like, it must be meant to be. Anyway, so that happened. I left. I got on the road, drove to Florida. I got to New Mexico, and that's when the anxiety kicked in. That's when reality hit. That's when I was like, oh my God, what did I just do? I literally just quit my job. I didn't give my apartment a 30-day notice, because I figured had I got there and then I realized I made a mistake, my rent was already still paid, so I could technically just drive back and act like nothing ever happened, and then tell my landlord that, hey, listen, I lost my job, and hope that because I'd never been late on my rent in 3 years, he would be willing to give me a couple weeks so I could find a new job and pay the rent. Like, when I tell you I had no plan, but I kind of figured out the plan. So I get to New Mexico and I realize I don't know where I'm going to live. I have no clue where I'm going to live, but and mind you, I'm in tears at this point, in tears from like New Mexico to probably halfway through Texas. 5 days later, I get to Florida and I stay in a motel, and I have to be at work at the new job the next day because what I thought was a 3-day trip turned to be a 5-day trip. So I stay in this really crummy motel in Boynton Beach. I don't even know where the hell I'm at. I didn't know it was a crummy motel till the next day when I woke up and I went out and I saw, I don't like to call them crackheads, but you know, the creepy crawlies. And I was just like, oh my God, what have I done? So I go to my new job and I didn't tell them that I had nowhere to stay because everybody, I felt like I was fresh meat. Everybody was like, why'd you move here from LA? And the more I heard that, I started to think like, God, you're right. Why did I move here? So I put an SOS out on Facebook, like literally SOS in South Florida, pretty much homeless in a motel. I got some money, but I have nowhere to stay. Does anybody know a landlord or a building owner or a realtor or something? And I talk about social media. Somebody on Facebook, like, inboxed me. It was like, oh yeah, actually I have a friend who's like a realtor and he only does houses, but he could probably maybe just at least point you in the right direction, like an apartment agency or something. And so I messaged him, told him same thing. I'm in Florida. I don't have nowhere to stay. I'm staying in some crappy crackhead motel. And when I told him my story, he was like, oh my, what? He literally said, I really only do houses, but I'm going to help you out because you sound like you need some help. I ended up, mind you, my credit was shit, by the way. So the chances of somebody renting to me, I already knew ahead of time, was very slim. So I figured I would either stay in the motel or stay in my truck, shower at like Planet Fitness, and save up enough money from the new job and hope to find, I'm telling you, a girl had no plan, but hell, I was out of LA. So we're at 26 minutes. God, I didn't want this video to be that long. Okay. How did I start a business with no money? And how did I get here when being on YouTube was never my plan? So, la-da-dee-da. Fast forward, new job, new place, living in Florida, overwhelmed, very overwhelmed, had no friends, knew nobody. I mean, the lizards, I couldn't even take it. I was just, that's how Luna came into my life. Didn't know anything about lizards, the humidity, the rain, never in my life. This is LA. It never rains in Southern California. Never in my life experienced any of that. It was culture shock. I was depressed, homesick, working for another doctor's office, just in another state, and feeling like, what have I done? I'm at work one day. I'm talking to my coworker who, in the midst of us getting to know each other over the months, she realizes I practice candle magic. So we connected. She knew a little something. I knew a lot of something. We became cool. And I'm sitting at work one day and I said to her, you know, I really wish that I could start my own business. Like, I wish I could do something that I really enjoyed, that I didn't need to go to school to learn because I already knew how to do it, and something that came naturally and I could make a decent living salary at the same time. And she says, well, what about your candles? And I'm like, my candles? What do you mean? What about my candles? And she's like, what about your candles? Like, why don't you teach people? Like, every time you've told me to light a candle, everything you've told me to do has worked. Like, what about your candles? And I'm like, what about them? Who? How? Who? What? At this time, there were some witches on YouTube. There weren't a lot, and there really weren't any that looked like, you know, me. So, and YouTube was the first, that never even crossed my mind. I'm thinking, who the hell am I going to teach? Who wants to hear about candles and spell work and witchcraft? Because it's taboo. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was still at a time where it wasn't like how it is now. It was taboo. Hi, mamas. So she's like, I don't know, but I think you're really good at it, and maybe you can start teaching. I thought she was nuts. I had no idea how I would do that and who the hell would want to listen to it. Who, right? So I tell my friend what she said. And my friend was like, that's a good idea, actually. And if you are a day oneer, comment down below, day oneer. Shout out to you if you are. My very first YouTube video, I will link it down in the bottom. I was a hot ass mess. I look like Aunt Your Mama off of the damn maple syrup, pancake syrup. I looked crazy in that video. My friend came to visit me because I was homesick and depressed for Thanksgiving, and caught me in the middle of dressing candles looking, I mean, I got my granny glasses on, my hair, I look like a hot crazy mess. You guys will see it. This little one is going nuts in the background because I had catnip on the table. And he was like, shut up and answer my questions. Like, just shut up and answer my questions. And he started asking me questions about the candles and what is this and what is that and what is this and what is that. And he's recording me. It's 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm drinking a beer and I'm looking crazy and I'm answering these questions. I leave for a couple hours and come back, and he puts the video on YouTube. And I'm like, what? Why would you do that? Like, what are you doing? And he was like, he edited the video and everything, and he put the video on YouTube. And he's like, here, I just started your YouTube channel. Now you can teach candle magic. And I said, quote, don't nobody want to hear anything I have to say. People are not interested in candle magic. People, who in the world will want to listen to me, and who could care? Nobody cares about this stuff. Like, people are going to think witchcraft, right? And he was like, well, I don't know. I think those 75 subscribers you got might be interested in what you have to say. And I'm looking at the computer like, 75 subscribers. I was shocked. Who knew? So I started talking about candles because I didn't have any friends. I mean, I had one friend, but I couldn't talk to her all day. I didn't have any friends in Florida, and I was by myself, and the only person I could talk to was my cat. And I knew that there's a big misconception around witchcraft. I knew that I have always used candles and they've been effective. I knew that I couldn't have been the only person out there who had life hit them and wanted to figure out a way to fix that, and have exhausted all other means of trying and just really felt like didn't have anything else left to do, so might as well burn a candle, hell, at this point. And I figured, hell, if 75 people wanted to hear it, maybe 76 would too. And now here we are, you know, like 87,000 subscribers later. The business I just did videos. I just talked. If you guys have been following me, if you were to go back to my first videos, Luna's in the videos are grainy, they're awful. I have no makeup on, the cat's knocking the damn. I just wanted to share what my mother taught me, and I wanted to share what I had used to help improve my life. And even though I wasn't completely where I wanted to be, hell, God bless it, I was out of LA and I was in a different environment, and I had peace and space to try to heal and figure out what the next thing was. So this YouTube channel, Mystic at the Crossroads, when I say this is dedicated to you guys, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. And I didn't start this channel. My friend started it, and we really didn't start it, but my friend forced me to answer questions and put up a video. And then I was just like, well, hell, I have nothing else to do. I might as well answer more questions, because people were commenting. So I would do videos in response to the questions, and I just kept posting videos. And the more videos I put up, the more questions I got, more people started coming. Then I started Let's Talk Magic, and that Facebook group grew to almost 20,000. And before I knew it, I was teaching candle magic. And when I left Florida and came back to LA, when I quit that job, I had been blessed and fortunate and manifested a way to support myself and help others at the same time. And I was just thinking the other day, I'm like, I go through some of my old messages and the immense amount of emails and comments and things of people saying, I did that candle and it worked. I watched your video and it worked. My intention was never to start a business. My intention was to help people help themselves, and to just shed a little light that candle magic and witchcraft isn't some dark devil worshiping practice. I mean, it can be, but that wasn't the way I was taught. And It was something that anybody could use to help themselves fix their life, change their life, make some changes. And that was my intention here. And that's still my intention here. So how does that relate to you? For anybody who's watching this video and you're at a crossroads and you're trying to make a decision, I can't tell you what to do, and I can't say that doing what I did is going to work for everybody. Like I said, I did this so you didn't have to. I burned the candles for a year. I quit my job with no money. I moved to a state where I knew nobody, literally. I was homeless in a crackhead motel for 3 days. I started a business on accident that I never planned on starting. And it worked. I still have no college degree. I might go back to school. It's something I'm thinking about, but you know, all those things that I was taught, all the things that you hear, all the things that you were told about, and I'm not, college, I am all for it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you don't have to have one or you shouldn't get one. To each his own. I just know, I told you guys about my whole college thing. I didn't. And even though I didn't, I still have been blessed with an extremely comfortable life. So I'm very grateful. And if you are in a crossroads in your life and you are wondering, should you take a leap of faith? You know what? If you're at a place where I was, where I had shit, it couldn't get any worse. I mean, it probably could have, but at that point, anything was better than where I was. I did it. And it was scary. But you know what? I didn't know, but I knew the universe was going to have my back. I couldn't have burned a year's worth of candles for nothing. And I knew that I would figure it out. And I knew that I would be okay some way, one way or the other. So you've made it this far. You know what I mean? You've got this far. Sometimes taking a leap of faith might be the one thing that you need to do. And sometimes opportunities come and it might be the only opportunity that you get. I'm going to close out with saying this one piece of advice. Get your natal chart done. And let me tell you why really quickly. So I had my natal chart done. And the first person who interpreted it told me that I was going to be leaving California. And I was like, you're nuts. No, I'm not. I had it done, I want to say about 1.5 years prior to when all of this happened and I left. That same person had my natal chart cross-read by their associate who knew nothing about me. They never called him ahead of time or nothing. And that person looked at my chart and said to me, oh, you're moving overseas. And I'm like, overseas? Mind you, I'm thinking like I'm working 50 hours in a doctor's office getting paid a ton of money and I'm still broke. I can barely get to work. How am I going to live overseas? And he was like, you're moving overseas. Now overseas, in, I don't know if it's aviation terms, forgive me. If you know the answer to this, please comment. What I was told is that's anything that is more than like 4 hours by plane. I don't know. Again, I'm an LA girl. I'm not leaving. And how the hell where am I going to go and how am I going to get there? Well, and I was actually told that it was going to happen during my solar return. And again, I mean, when I was like, whatever, I mean, okay, that's what the chart says, but I'm in control of my own free will and I'm not leaving. I had 1,000,001 excuses and they were both like, okay, well, that's fine. You are in control of your own free will, but you're also approaching your Saturn return and you're going to have a drastic life change and you're leaving. Well, I did. I had a drastic life change and I left to a place I never knew I would go. Last but not least, which I find to be very interesting when it comes to magic, and the day that this dawned on me, I cried. I was driving to my job and I realized that I was driving by, I worked a 3-minute drive away from the location where my father's memorial was held in Boynton Beach. And it was just so, talk about coming full circle. It was very surreal. And the crazy part is I had been driving by that building for months going to work, and it just never clicked. Like this one particular day, I happened to look, like actually look at the building, because the area seemed familiar, but again, I had only, you know, had been there once for like, you know, however long I was there. And I looked at the building and I was like, oh my goodness, this whole time, through everything that I've gone through, all this whole transition, I moved to Delray, not knowing Delray was right next to Boynton. And I've been driving 3 minutes away from where my father passed, not where he passed, but where his service was held. So I don't know what you guys think. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments, but that sounds like magic to me. So get your natal chart done. Your natal chart is your blueprint, and it will highlight who you are. It can help you determine why you're here, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are. It explains why you experience some things in life, and it can give you a heads up as to what to expect. I've never doubted astrology, but I tell you, I didn't believe them. I was like, this chart must be wrong, and it wasn't. So if I were to leave you with one last piece of advice, is find somebody good that you trust, get your natal chart done, learn about yourself, do some self-discovery, and don't stay in a place where you're miserable. I'm not saying up and quit your job with no money and no plan. Don't do that. But also, you weren't put here to just go to work, pay bills, and be miserable. If you're unhappy, at the very least, talk to the moon, burn a candle, ask the universe. What I did was the scariest thing I had ever did in my entire life. Terrifying. It was sink or swim, and it was the best decision I ever made. So sometimes the scariest things and going outside of our comfort zone is the very thing that we need to do to get to where we want to be. If you want to talk privately, if you have questions, leave them down in the comments. I would love to hear your feedback. I know this was a long video again. I didn't plan to make a video rambling about myself, but I felt like if this helped one person feel a little more safe to do something they've never done before, and gave them hope that if you did it, you might be surprised at how great the outcome could be, then it was worth it, you know? If you like this video, let me know. Have you done anything like this? Yeah, and thank you. Thank you for receiving me here on YouTube. Thank you for allowing me to be vulnerable and transparent. This is the most of my own private personal life I've ever shared publicly, ever. I'll be honest, I don't know if I'm gonna do it again because I feel a little exposed right now, but I also know that I know the feeling of when you're lost and need help. And God, like I said in my last video, I wish there was a video like this for me back then. So I hope this was helpful. Please let me know if it was. 31 days of magic. I'm gonna make it happen. Starting tomorrow is gonna be the first video. If you have a question, comment, video topic, leave it down below. I would love to do a Q&A. Tell me what you guys want. I made this channel for you. And now I'm coming to the community to ask you, what would you like to see here? I want to help y'all. I want y'all to be successful. And it's the season of the witch. So this is the best time of the year. If you're going to manifest some changes, you got the next 31 days to do it. And I'm happy to help. All right, you guys, good night. Thank you so much for watching. And I'll be seeing y'all tomorrow. Talk to you soon. Bye.